Now let's move to this story, and it was covered quite extensively a few months ago, the corruption at Thembisa Hospital. And it hit headlines not for the staggering level of theft at first, but for the assassination of health auditor Babita Deokaran, who was, at the time of her death in August 2021, probing maladministration in the facility. When Gauteng Premier Kganyago was appointed, cleaning up the rot at this and other corrupt hospitals was a big priority. Now, in December last year, he received a preliminary report from the Special Investigating Unit on Thembisa Hospital. The Premier promised to honour Deokaran's legacy with swift action. But now it seems a ball or two may have been dropped. The City Press reporting this past weekend that a deadline to either charge or reinstate two suspended health officials has actually now lapsed. Well, I'm joined now by the SIU's Kaizer. Mr. Kganyago, first of all, thank you so much for waiting while we chatted with Pule, who was speaking to the new mayor of Tshwane. I want to just get back to that moment. You handed over a preliminary report and you asked the president to launch, my understanding, a full probe into what was going on at Thembisa Hospital. Where is the matter currently?
Thank you very much, Sally, and thank you to your viewers. At the present moment, we have started the process of getting a proclamation. And the reason we are doing that is because when we were investigating initially, we were investigating on the request of the Premier of Gauteng, and we call that a secondment. We seconded some of our officials to go and do the investigation. We came up with a report, and that is the reason why we gave the report to the Premier and not to the President, as we always do. But then we have started the process on our side to make sure that this matter is now put to the President for a proclamation, because we felt we needed to get the full powers that we need as the SIU to investigate further and make sure that we do the recoveries that we need to do.
All right, so just explain to me what full powers this gives you, as opposed to just doing an ordinary investigation and then handing over what you have to the NPA to then decide whether to prosecute and arrest.
Yes, when we do a secondment is basically in a simpler manner, where the Premier's office was the one that was investigating. They needed the expertise from the SIU. We provided the expertise. Therefore, in principle, the investigation is an investigation of the Premier's office, but they used our services to do that. Therefore, that is why at the end of it, all that we can do is to give the report back to them with the recommendations and what the findings. But when we are in a proclamation, we have got the powers to recover, which we can do in our name or in the name of the institution that we are working with. Therefore, in that case, we can go to the special tribunal and recover the monies that needs to be recovered, and so on and so on.
Okay. And are you concerned that since you handed that report over in December last year, we've not heard of any proclamation? Is it unusually long to wait for such a proclamation?
The proclamations take time because we draft the proclamation from our side. We then take them through the legal people in the Department of Justice, wherein they recommend it to the President, which still have to go through the processes of the legal people in the presidency before the President signs. Therefore, it varies from one proclamation to the other, but that process has to happen, because if it doesn't happen, we are going to have a problem where people will challenge us, because these people can litigate and they could say this process was jammed, therefore that proclamation is not valid. Therefore, I would urge people to understand that we need to give it space so that we are able to then get to the proclamation in a proper manner, and we'll still get to the bottom. And the investigation that will happen after will not take too long, because we've already done the investigation. It's just a matter of closing up the things that we could not do when we are not in a proclamation.
All right. So that leads me to my next question. And the City Press was reporting that the hospital's CEO, Ashley Mthunzi, and the CFO, Lerato Madio, were suspended last year by the hospital. And they've explained that according to the government employee rulebook, they have to be charged or reinstated within 90 days. Now, I'm not too clear on whether that's charged in terms of an internal disciplinary committee or charged by a court of law. I wonder if you have any involvement in that particular process, that you could unpack it for us.
We do not have so much involvement, because what then happens, one of the outcomes that we have as the SIU is disciplinary action. If you find evidence that leads to somebody having done something wrong, we then give that evidence to the employer, because this becomes an employer-employee issue. Therefore, the employer in this case will have to then take action in terms of disciplinary hearing. Therefore, that is what this whole thing is about. Therefore, all we can do is to monitor it and get feedback from the Premier's office and say, how far are you with this, and so on. But that the mere fact that there is an issue of being charged for whatever days and so on doesn't necessarily mean the evidence will go away.
Yeah, sure, I understand that.
Can still be,
But it sort of certainly, delays it, and it frustrates the whole process. Is the reason very likely that these two have not been charged by the Health Department because that proclamation hasn't come through, which kind of opens the way?
Not necessarily, because the disciplinary hearings are done not because of the proclamation. They are done on a day-to-day basis, and that is where we are. Therefore, charging somebody has got nothing to do with the proclamation. The main reason why we are waiting for the proclamation is to make sure that we are able to then, in cases where we need to recover the money, we are able to recover the money. In cases according to law, if we need to refer for criminal purposes, we need to do so to the NPA. And those are the powers that we need to get through a proclamation. But also, the proclamation gives us the scope of what we need to investigate. Therefore, we are going to then easily get the scope, because we already know what is in there. We've done the investigation via a secondment.
All right. So there's nothing actually stopping the hospital saying, look, based on what's in this preliminary report, this is extremely disturbing, and we'd like to go ahead with the disciplinary committee justice as swiftly as possible. Have you been given any indication of how long it might take before this proclamation decision rests with the president?
Obviously, like I said, when we take the proclamation, we write it ourselves. Therefore, when it goes to the Department of Justice, if they've got questions, they come back and say, we don't understand this, why is this way? Therefore, it's not something that we can say. It will take so much. But as we indicate, we have started the process, and like I said earlier on, I urge the public not to make any kind of allegations that are not going to be helpful. At the end of it all, the process will be followed, whatever time it takes, but we want it to happen as quickly as possible. But whatever time, we then have to get the proclamation signed. There are many other proclamations that went to the president via the same process long before this one that we are still waiting for. Therefore, at the end of it all, once that is done, we will be able to do what we're supposed to do. Let us not take shortcuts, because shortcuts will lead us into losing the trail of what we are trying to do. Let us allow the process to happen, and once the process has happened, we will do what we're supposed to do without fear or favor.
I hear you. Very quickly, based on the preliminary report, are you absolutely sure there is a big case to answer and an important investigation that needs to uncover corruption?
Definitely. We have already, in our preliminary report, indicated who are the people who did what and who didn't do what. We've got the evidence. All of that is there in black and white. Therefore, at the end, all that we need to do is to make a proclamation so that we can then finalize it cleanly and make sure that all that might have benefited unlawfully will bring the money back. All those who would have, for example, done criminality will be dealt with accordingly with the work that we do with the NPA. That is something that we want to do, and we want to finalize it as quickly as we can.
Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. It is so important to keep tabs on these important investigations that uncover corruption. The SIU's Kaizer Kganyago just updating us on the progress of that investigation into Thembisa Hospital. They are busy putting together the proclamation document. That is a process that goes through the president. He says there is no hint of any political interference. It is still to go to the president. He has the power to then issue that proclamation, which gives the SIU very specific powers to seize money back, to claw money back, and then also, of course, to move on to the NPA for prosecution.